Alright, what is up, everybody? This is Alex once again with another episode of the EOT Newsflash. This is episode 56, Lost Legacy, and I'm not actually referring to that surprisingly playable card from Kaladesh, for standard at least. No, we'll get to that here in a little bit though. But I do want to point out that this is the second episode in my new apartment. If you weren't watching last week or listening last week, I moved down to Florida, where it never gets cold apparently. It's not dropped below 71 since I've been down here. It's pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie. I'm digging it down here. Anyway, I do want to start off tonight's episode by talking about Pauper, a format that I care approximately zero about. But what happened today in Pauper is kind of important because it's only the second time in recent memory that Wizards has done an emergency ban. The last time we did this was all the way back with Memory Jar. But yeah, so let's bring up on the screen this little guy, Peregrine Drake. The unassuming common that was recently reprinted in Eternal Masters. It's a 4 and a blue flyer, 2/3, and when it enters the battlefield, it untaps up to 5 lands. Now, I'm sure if you've played Magic for any amount of time, you understand that the untap mechanic is a really, really dangerous thing to play with. And Peregrine Drake is part of a Pauper combo, or was I should say, that basically allowed you to play Peregrine Drake and essentially cast Ghostly Flicker targeting Peregrine Drake and Archaeomancer to basically blink them indefinitely, generating infinite mana because Ghostly Flicker costs less than the Peregrine Drake trigger actually costs, so you're constantly netting mana. And that allows you to constantly blink Archaeomancer to get a spell from your graveyard back to your hand, things like Lightning Bolt or Rolling Thunder, to kill your opponent as soon as you assemble this combo. This hadn't been a problem on Pauper, which is primarily a online format, until Eternal Masters came out and Peregrine Drake was printed at Common. And that broke the format. Up until now, I believe, I'm checking my number here. Yeah, this Flicker combo deck took over 22% of the online metagame. And that's just online. That is an absurd number. So in a pretty, desperate, not desperate, but bold move today, Wizards banned Peregrine Drake as of, November 16th. So yeah, during the downtime, it's gone from Pauper. It's out. Health of the format, degenerate combos, what have you, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, I don't really play Pauper. I've done it once or twice. It's a neat format, especially when you approach Magic from the mindset of having only commons at your disposal. There's some surprisingly busted commons out there. Counterspell being one of them. They're always printing cards that surprisingly break into that format. Gurmag Angler comes to mind as a recent addition to sort of the Pauper landscape. But yeah, so Peregrine Drake, bye-bye. Live long and prosper, Pauper, I guess. This is kind of cool in a sense that this is only the second time that Wizards has ever done an emergency ban like this. But also the fact that it's an online format primarily, this shows that Wizards is a little bit more of an aggressive mindset to take action like this when it comes to formats that are strictly played online. So I think that's kind of cool. That might be showing, some maturity in Wizards' mindset about certain things that only can take place online. We'll see if that actually translates to anything moving on from here. Who knows? So let's ban the Drake from the stream. Boom. And let's move on to our second topic of the night, which is Commander, a format that I also don't really care that much about, but I might be changing that tune here in about a week and a half or so. I think the new decks come out in about a week, if I'm not mistaken. So, of course, if you've been following any amount of Magic news recently, you know that Wizards is coming out with their yearly Commander product once again. We've seen tricolor wedges, tricolor shards, monocolor planeswalkers, two-color or enemy-colored Commander decks, and now we are getting the thing that everybody's apparently been clamoring for the past 5 years: 4-color Commanders. If you watched last week, I talked a little bit about Atraxa, Praetor's Voice, and how she's just kind of keyword soup. But yeah, so they've all been revealed, so I'm going to break these guys down really quickly. First one being Brea Ethereum Sculptor. For a blue, a white, a black, and a red, you get a 4/4 legendary artifact creature human that when she enters the battlefield, you get 2/1/1 blue Pauper tokens of flying on the battlefield. You can pay 2, sacrifice 2 artifacts, and you may choose one. She either deals 2 damage to a player, gives a creature -4/-4, or you gain 5 life. This thing's really, really sweet. I like this girl a lot. Things that come to mind: Ashnod's Altar and Nim Deathmantle making infinite mana. Thopter Sword combo. There's a lot of stupid things that you can do with Brea here, and in my opinion, Brea is Bea. Just saying. Next we've got Yidris Maelstrom Wielder. For a blue, a black, a red, and a green, you get a 5/4 legendary Ogre Wizard with Trample, and whenever he deals combat damage to a player, as you cast spells from your hand this turn, they gain Cascade. What? Seriously? For as little commanders I've played, I understand one thing. Maelstrom Wanderer is stupid, and his new buddy, Yidris, they're like bros now, BFFs. I don't know if Maelstrom Wanderer actually has hands to like fist pump with, but they are like best bros now, and just the fact that you can just use Yidris as your commander and just put Maelstrom Wanderer in your hand, deal damage, cast Maelstrom Wanderer, which has Cascade. Does that mean that you have 3 instances of Cascade? I don't actually know. But yeah, this is a stupidly powerful card. Give this guy double strike, and you have 2 instances of that Cascade, so give all of your spells double Cascade, so they basically turn them all into Maelstrom Wanderers. There's a lot of dumb things that this commander can do. I like him. Next we have Saskia the Unyielding, aka what happened to, shoot. Oh my goodness, I just forgot the character's name from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Anyway. Sasuke. It's not Sasuke, that's Naruto. Anyway, so for a black, a green, a black, a red, a green, and a white, I'm looking up now. That's really bothering me. What is Katara Aang? Oh goodness. Bear with me, guys. This is gonna bug me now. Usually much more prepared for this. Sokka, there we go. This is Sokka grown up with a slightly different mindset. From Avatar. Anyway, for a black, a green, a red, and a white, you get a 3/4 legendary human soldier with vigilance and haste. As he enters the battlefield, choose a player. Whenever a creature you control deals damage to a player, it deals damage to the chosen player. So you attack Bob after choosing Sue, and Sue takes the amount of damage that Rob took. Or if you just pick Sue and attack Sue, she takes double damage, and Sue probably dies very soon after that. Yeah. Kind of underwhelming. I'm not going to lie. It's just combat. It's whatever. But yeah, if that's your thing, go crazy for this guy. Next we have Kainois. K and Tiro of Melites. For a red, a green, a white, and a blue, you get a legendary creature, human soldier. It's a 2/8. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If each player may put a land card from his or her hand onto the battlefield, and each player who didn't do this draws a card. So that's pretty sweet. This has got Group Hug written all over it. The Jeskai colored commander deck originally, Zedru the Greathearted, I think, was the elk commander. Plays really well with these two. Fun fact about these guys, if you remember Theros block and the Guardians of Melitis, it was an artifact. It was a 0/6 for, I think, 3 mana, had Defender, if I'm not mistaken. This is them. And they are quite coolly, quite interesting enough and very cool of Wizards to do this. They're a interracial gay couple. That's awesome. Putting LGBTQ characters in Magic, I think, is super sweet. We had Alacia from Khans of Tarkir, who turned out to be transgendered. I am all about putting characters like this into Magic and kind of putting them on the front of a product. I think that's really, really cool, and props to Wizards for doing that. Other than that, Group Hug is fun for a commander. Yeah. Next one we have is the one we talked about last week. This is Atraxa, Predator's Voice. A green, a white, a blue, and a black will get you a legendary creature Angel Horror 4/4 Flying Vigilance Death Touch Lifelink at the beginning of your end step proliferates, which means if there's a counter of a kind on anything in the game, whether it's a player, a creature, a planeswalker, experience counters, +1/+1 counters, -1 counters, you name it, put another one of those on that thing or person. This is pretty crazy. I've already seen a couple of deck techs about her or it online. This goes really well in a Super Friends build. You know, what color are the best planeswalkers ever printed? White, blue, black, and green. Sorry, Chandra. But yeah, the planeswalkers and Super Friends in the build around Atraxa are crazy. Yeah, she's super cool though. A little bit of the keyword soupy, but interesting enough. Also, there's a bunch. I believe there are 10 partner cards within this set. That means you can have 2 commanders as long as they have partner. It allows you to create some cool 4-color combinations without using one of these 4-color planeswalkers. Or you can create some 3-color combinations if you want to go that route. Still super cool. Kind of alleviates the constrictive space that designing 4-color cards can actually present, which I think these 5 that we've seen are the best examples of what we're going to get. And if Wizards returns to 4-color commanders, I'll be very interested and surprised by what they figure out to make them still feel unique. But time will tell. Now, if you haven't already, go and check out the deck lists for these are online. There's a great article, I believe it was written by Saffron Olive over on MTG Goldfish, who breaks down the value of all of these decks. These things, for a box that's going to cost you $35, $34.99 MSRP, and if you have to pay over that at your local game store, do not pay over for MSRP for these things at all. Just don't do it. You know, looking back to the Grixis one that had True Name Nemesis in it, not worth it. Obviously, the original set of these, the Mimeoplasm, Kali of the Vast, those ran out of print very, very quickly and command a very high price tag on the secondary market. But for the time being, don't pick these up if you're paying more than MSRP for them. It's just not worth it. But these things are smash-packed full of value. They kind of calculated out the current value of each of the cards within each of these decks, and each one of these is a minimum $100 box. I think the highest one caps are around $130, $140. That is an insane amount of value for a brand new Commander player. And since it's a 4-color deck, you can kind of take these pieces and put them in other decks you might have, or put your own cards in them. This is super, super sweet. And I'm actually considering buying one of these. I usually avoid the Commander products on a yearly basis. Obviously, I had to get the Mimeoplasm because Dinosaur Arm. And I really like the Nekasar one from the Grixis. The Grixis line that they did, the Alara Shards, when they printed those a couple years ago. But I am really, really looking closely at one of some of these decks. In particular, Invent Superiority, which is the Esper Red or Grixis Whites, or Jeskai Black, if you will. Brea Ethereum Sculpt Shaper, just because of all the cool things I think I can do with her. As I already mentioned, you can do things like Nim Death Mantle and Ashnod's Altar, Dr. Sword combo. There's a lot of really cool potential, and I like Artifacts, and Tezzeret and her are just like BFFs. So, considering picking up that one, we'll see. I'm excited to see these decks in action. I might just want to play with them for a while. But yeah, I think these are super cool. 4-color commanders are cool, and yeah, Brea is Bea. So there you go. So that is not the end of our episode tonight. There's something pretty substantial that needs to be talked about, and I know that a lot of outlets have already talked about this. If you follow competitive Magic in general on a more local scene, not so much the Pro Tour, Pro level, you may have already seen this, but this is where our Lost Legacy comes in. And I have my pages of notes right here because there's a lot to cover here for this one. But effectively, at the beginning, or actually, let's roll the clock back actually towards the end of last year, so 2015. Star City Games, one of the biggest distributors of Magic online, content-wise, product-wise, tournament-wise. There's a SCG open literally every weekend, other than like the pre-release. Even the weekends of the Pro Tour, they were holding regionals and states. I mean, they're a big deal when it comes to Magic in general. And, if you've played Magic for any amount of time, you probably have bought stuff from them and been to an event, and they're a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy competing at Star City Games event. There's a lot of value to be gained from there. There's a lot of opportunity to meet the pro players that are on that circuit. But yeah, for the most part, I appreciate what they do for the Magic community at large. But apparently at the tail end of 2015, there was a lot of worry coming from them, at least internally, on whether or not they could continue the SCG Tour, as they had kind of dubbed it, which was the weekly tournaments in different states. You basically got pro points from the tour, got to go to the invitationals, all that good stuff. There was a lot at stake for people who wanted to grind this out, but they really weren't sure if they could continue it. And so there's this ridiculous narrative that this guy wove for us over on the SCG homepage. The article came up on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. And he basically kind of alluded to, we might not be able to continue this because every time we'd have a brainstorming session or a meeting about what we could do with the tour, we just couldn't figure anything out. So things are looking pretty bleak. Apparently he gets on an airplane and is struck by a bolt of inspiration, pulls a napkin out of his pocket, a pen out of his pocket, and is like jotting down details. I'm like, I am going to save the tour because I don't know, like Heliod struck me with a bolt of inspiration, or Keranos did, there we go, for flavor reasons, and I know how to save the tour. And save is a strong word, depending on who you are. So let's kind of run down what they were, bottom to top. The most important down to what the middle of the, well, they're all important, I guess, but the big ones to the smaller ones, the more local ones, I guess you could call them. So up until now, there have been 4 invitationals a year, which is basically if you won an IQ or if you did well enough at an SCG Open or a Classic, I believe, you got to go to the Invitational, which was basically split over 2 days, and it was split format. It used to be Legacy and Standard, but now it's Legacy or Modern Standard, and you got to play it out, and the winner got to have their own token, which was really cool, won a lot of money, and you got to see the Players' Championship. Now there's only 2. And they still have the combined prize weight of about $200,000 when it's all said and done. Each one is worth $100,000 now. Prize pool split, top 30, I think 64 gets paid down to. So that's kind of irrelevant. It's just, a bigger prize pool. It's just a bigger event, more competitors at these events. I think that's kind of a cool thing to kind of maybe simplify it so you don't, and then maybe it does create a bit of an issue in terms of scheduling. I wasn't able to go to the invitational that I actually qualified for just due to scheduling and reasons. So cutting off 2 of the events now makes it a little bit harder maybe more difficult for scheduling because you only have 2 shots to go. But they are moving these to be at their Roanoke, Virginia complex instead of having them in like Atlanta and Vegas, places like that, which was pretty sweet. But since the theme of this whole change that they made is about saving money, it seems, having them in-house is kind of cool. And I've always wanted to go to the Star City Game Center in Virginia. I imagine it's a pretty cool place. They have really big pre-releases there. So I imagine it's kind of a cool thing to get to go and play a giant tournament there, especially if there's $100,000 on the line. So that's change number 1. And that, like, at the top of the article, that was the first thing he alluded to. And he also alluded to changes to the Players' Championship, which there was a 16-man tournament at the end of the year, which had just $1 zillion on the line, and it was the best of the best on that tour. We got to see guys like Brian Braun-Duin, Chris Van Meter. I'm blanking on a lot of the guys that are on some of the other teams they're popular on the SCG circuit, at least. They're all blanking, I'm sorry, unfortunately. But yeah, you got to see a lot of really good, skilled players there battle it out for, I think, like $50,000. That was top prize. $50,000. That's a big deal. This was like the World Championships for non-pro circuit Magic players, even though a lot of these guys were actually pros in their own right. They didn't mention it, though. I don't think it's coming back. And I'm really kind of curious as to why. I mean, that's a lot of money to give away to somebody. I understand that. But I don't know what's going on there. They made absolutely zero mention of it other than the fact that there are changes coming to it. So I don't know if they're replacing it with a different event or something. I have no idea. I'll probably never be on it, so it doesn't really matter to me. But that's kind of a big deal towards that that thing that everyone at the end of the year was battling it out for is interesting. Everybody who, if you grinded on the weekends trying to get the points to get onto the top 8 leaderboards, that was kind of a big deal. If you won an invitation, you got a spot at this thing. So I wonder what's going to happen with this, and if they continue with a different theme or face to the program, it'll be interesting to see that. But yeah, it's gone from all intents and purposes. Now to the big elephant in the room and the Lost Legacy. Starting with this year. And it was kind of already indicated last year as well. Star City Games was really cutting back on their legacy events. Usually the events that you could play on the weekend were either a Legacy Open, a Modern Open, or a Standard Open, and it was a pretty regular rotation. And at each of these events, if you didn't make day 2, there was always a sort of a classic event, was what they're calling them now, where you could play one of those formats, whether it was Modern, Legacy, or Standard, which is pretty cool. It was a great way to come back, if you didn't make day 2, but to keep playing Magic with a lot of really good players, I thought was a great idea. So this year, there have been 2 Legacy Opens. The next one is actually this weekend. I believe it is in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. No, Baltimore. There we go. Next year, there is 1. And they've replaced the other one with a team-constructed Open, where you're going to have a team of 3 people, one of them playing Modern, one playing Standard, one playing Legacy. And that's all you get for Legacy in terms of next year, at least Season 1 from this standpoint, which is about halfway through 2017. Also gone are the Legacy Opens. Now you can only play Legacy on Sunday if you don't make day 2, if the main event is Legacy. So if it's a Legacy Open weekend, you can play Legacy on Sunday if you don't make day 2. Or it has to be this team-constructed Open weekend. You can play Legacy if you don't make day 2. So there are no Legacy Classics anymore, which is kind of a bummer as well. It's typically just been Modern and Standard been getting the biggest draw, but they've been routinely having all 3 formats on Sunday as a Classic. And that's a really cool thing, but now there's just no more, which is kind of crappy. It's kind of ironic because the day of this article going up, if you're on Star City Games' mailing list, you got an email including their 15% off Vintage and Legacy staples, of which now you can't actually use. So it kind of begs the question, what the hell Star City Games is actually doing, getting rid of Legacy. I've never really played a lot of Legacy. I own a majority of Shardless Bug, and I break it out every once in a while. There's like a proxy event going on. I do enjoy playing the format. It's very, very skill intensive, and I'm sure a lot of you guys out there listening enjoy the format as well. But it looks like this is just become sort of a local event. If your store holds like a Thursday night Legacy tournament, that's about it. And really, the people that are going to try and pick up the slack for Star City Games is literally just it drop and walk away from it. Companies like Tales of Adventure, who held Eternal Extravaganza just this weekend actually, and we also had the Legacy and Vintage World Championships going on this weekend. It's still a thriving community. I get that. I just don't understand why Star City Games is cutting so much of the Magic population out. I get that Standard is the most popular format, followed by Modern very closely. But it's still there, and I don't know why you need to cut out the Classics. I don't know what the logic behind that is. I don't understand that. I understand that it's harder to really get a big draw for Legacy on weekends, especially if it's like your primary event. You get a Standard event. Heck, back in Dallas, where I came from, 700 people, I think, came out to one of our Modern or Standard Opens. You just don't get those kind of numbers with Legacy. So I understand the rationale from that perspective, but cutting out the Classic seems like a really big misstep. And I'm hoping that they kind of take next year, at least Season 1, as sort of a perspective check for them and go, oh, maybe we should kind of retailer our thinking here and kind of step back and mix things up a little bit. But yeah, so hopefully companies like Tales of Adventure can pick up the slack there and give us, some kind of legacy, a competitive Legacy event, for the masses instead of just on the local level at your local game store. The other big change, and I know this is kind of a bummer for a lot of people, especially a bunch of my friends back home. SCG States is no longer a thing. I believe it took place on one of the weekends of the Pro Tour, if I'm not mistaken. But you could basically go to one of the major stores in your area. Dallas Madness Comics back in my home state of Texas had it every year, and you get to play out for your state championship, which was really sweet. I've got a bunch of my friends, Jason Blackmore, shout out to Jason, won it a couple of years ago. I mean, lots of my friends have won this event, and I always thought it was really cool. You know, you're playing for the right to say that you were the best in your state. I mean, world champion's pretty sweet, but state champion's also pretty close. National champion, pretty good, but you know, state champion's also pretty good. But yeah, apparently trying to coordinate with 50 different tournament organizers and shops and things like that just became too difficult for Star City Games, so that's done too. In a bit of a positive spin, they have apparently done one thing that people are excited about. If you play any kind of, you know, competitive Magic on the weekends that isn't a PPTQ, your choice was usually an IQ or a Super IQ. And basically the difference between those is that there was more money involved in a Super IQ and more invitations to the Invitational for, I think it was the top 2 got the invite, or just the top first place. I'm not 100% sure on the differentiation. But now all IQs are effectively Super IQs. Every one of them has a minimum $1,000 prize payout to top 8, which is great. And there are 2 invitational spots opened up for first and second place, which is really cool. So if you like playing competitive Magic on the weekend but are not really hip to the PPTQ scene, I know all of the arguments for and against the PPTQ scene. I have my own. Yeah, this is a great alternative, and it's a cool way to get, you know, extra prizes. You know, you go in, you get the play mat, you get top 8 pins. There's all kinds of cool stuff that you just don't get at a PPTQ, which can be, you know, basically a glorified F&M. So yeah, SCG is kind of mixing things up, moving things around, upsetting the established order, and pissing off a lot of people in the process. That 15% legacy and vintage staple sale was that's rough. That's really rough. And I really hope that this isn't just, you know, a money motivator here. I don't know if they're truly in the financial distress that they seem like they are with a move like this. I honestly don't know. I don't particularly care. But like I said, I do enjoy going to Star City Games events. I have purchased plenty of stuff from them in the past. I'm sure I will again in the future. But this is a really weird move on their part, and I know that they've got their reasonings and the financials all check out for them in the long run. But it's a bit of a head scratcher for now, and I know a lot of people are not happy about these moves that they've been making. So hopefully they come back with something in the tail end of 2017 for Season 2, or at least 2018, where they kind of they have something new to give us. And we'll go from there, and we'll see what happens. I'm sure we'll revisit this in about a year, I imagine. But yeah, so that is another episode, another week in the world of the EOT News Flash. Again, I'm super excited about the new Commander decks coming out. Definitely let me know which one you guys are psyched to play with. What are you gonna build? What two partnered cards are you most excited to put in your decks together? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the videos over here on YouTube. Check us out every week on MTG Cast, and of course, check us out on Twitter and Facebook. And just search for EOT Newsflash on both of those. You can find us. Send all of your questions and comments. Love, hate, and respect to EOTnewsflash@gmail.com. And yeah, thanks for listening and watching, guys. And I will talk to y'all next week. See you later, guys.